Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I know today is Friday before spring break, so thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. A shout out to our colleagues from OIT. If you can check your bubbles so we know who you are, that would be great. So I see Chinderko here, I think, and Rosie, I believe. Rosie's here, right? Rosie's also. Right. I'm joined here today by my colleagues from OLAP. Um, I will probably let them say a few words. So I know some of you know my colleagues, but some of you may not know all of them. So I'll probably go through the list here. Dr. Johnston, would you like to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this demo, Dave, and for bringing this together, Igor. This is interesting to see. So I look forward to learning.
Thanks. Chris?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Imberton. I'm one of the instructional designers here at OLAP. And as most of you probably know, I specialize more in the quality assurance and creating interactive activities to include in the courses.
Thanks, Chris. And Sue, next.
Hi everyone, my name is Sue. I'm the instruction designer.
Thanks, Sue. And see, Tanya.
Hello, my name is Tanya Hussein. I'm an instructional designer with OLAP, and I help redesign courses and add uh, interactive activities and strategies to learn.
Thanks, Tanya. And so everybody knows this session is being recorded and will be available along with other recordings on our website. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker, Dr. David Williams. He holds a PhD in entrepreneurship and strategic management from Georgia State University. He also has an MBA in international business from DePaul University and a BA in international studies from Lincoln University. His research interest centers around cognitive processes underpinning entrepreneurial decision making and behaviors that impact a firm's growth, profitability, and survival. His research also includes entrepreneurs' evaluation of entrepreneurial opportunities, internationalization, identity, and experimental methods. Dr. Williams has taught courses in entrepreneurship, innovation, strategic management, and international business at the University of Tennessee, Georgia State University, and Bradley University. Dr. Williams, please take it away.
Thank you, Igor, and thanks everybody for being here. Like you said before, it's the Friday before spring break, so not always the most popular time, but my goal here is to really just walk you through some of the ways that I use it and to give you a sense of the platform, especially if you've never been on it or used it before. And so what I'm going to do is I've got some slides I'll share in a moment, mostly just to give a little bit of background and kind of a summary of some of the features and benefits and drawbacks, but also to start to give you a sense of how it might look in more of a classroom setting. One of the things you're already probably kind of realizing is the ability to move around and to do some different things that is very different from Zoom, which is a very kind of locked space. It's possible for people to move around. Right now what we're set up in is kind of a typical presentation room where you can kind of sit around like you would in a classroom. Um, and so we're going to kind of start with this, and then please just ask questions as we go along. So this is really intended to be something that hopefully is helpful for everybody that's here. And if I'm not getting to something that you want to know, just jump on in and ask. In terms of the way that the audio works, it's proximity-based audio, which means that if you just unmute your microphone, what it's going to do is that you can really only talk to people that are very geographically close to you in the space. If you turn on what's called the broadcast feature, if you see there's kind of a megaphone by my circle, that megaphone basically means you're broadcasting to everybody in the space. So for something like this, it's less of an issue, but when we get into team room situations, that's where it's useful for the instructor to be able to broadcast, but can be a bit annoying if the students start broadcasting inadvertently to everybody in the space rather than just using their microphone to talk to the folks in their room. But let me go ahead and share my slides. All right, so we kind of labeled this as a kind of an alternative to Zoom, and a solution that can be used for hybrid and online courses. The agenda for today are just to kind of walk through some of the things I just mentioned, a little bit of background, benefits and drawbacks, some front end and back end features that you might be thinking, do these exist? How do these work? And then just a couple examples of how I use it in more of kind of a natural setting in the classroom. So my background, I teach undergraduate and doctoral level courses. I'm developing a course in the online MBA here, but I'm not an expert online teacher. I'm still very much learning. And so this is where, some of the experience we have here in the room is going to be incredibly useful. I discovered InSpace during the pandemic when it was used for an online conference. And after I taught hybrid with Zoom in fall of 20, that was a horrible experience for many of us. And I just remembered InSpace and felt like it would be a different experience. And so I started using it as my hybrid option ever since then. And basically what I mean by the hybrid option is that I give that as an option for my students. If there's a day they can't be in class because they're traveling, because they're sick, whatever it might be, they know that they have this option to log in on InSpace, and they know that whatever we're doing in class, to the extent there are some things I can't do both places at the same time, but to the extent that I can use this in both places, I'll be doing that. So what are the benefits? I think it's less awkward and more natural. Just the way we're set up here feels much more like what we feel like in the classroom, as opposed to the rows and rows of squares or giant square talking heads. I think it's less stressful for students to leave their cameras on. Those of you who have your cameras on, you feel like it's kind of less focused. It's kind of not as intrusive. The students tend to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. It models the in-person classroom experience, gives the students a little bit more agency, and provides the instructor more flexibility. And I'll walk through some of those flexibility elements in the next few minutes. So some of the other benefits, I think the team room setup is by far better than what Zoom has to offer. There's more classroom options that you can switch around in the middle of doing a class, and I'm going to do that here as we go through. The Google login option is super helpful for our students since their emails are already Google ready. The proximity-based audio makes it, kind of just interesting to use for a number of things, whether students are having discussions. There's an exercise that I'll show you later that I'll do it in the physical classroom that in an online setting would be almost impossible without proximity-based audio. And because of the way that it's set up, it has tended to reduce the Zoom fatigue. It tends to be a little bit more comfortable. So what are the drawbacks? The screen sharing, at least for me, works a lot better on a 2-monitor setup. I can see everything I'm presenting right now, and so unlike Zoom, sometimes this is a nice setup. But for whatever reason, for me, I just like to have the 2-monitor setup when I'm using InSpace. When I don't, it feels a little bit more constraining to me. Like Zoom, background noise can be problematic. If I have students that are online and students that are in class and they're doing group work together, you do get some kind of cross noise going back and forth. There's really, I don't know that there's a solution for that, but the InSpace has not solved that. It's not yet as institutionally supported here at UT as Zoom. It's a newer tool, and I know Zoom is our standard. There is currently a cost, so I think I paid $375 for the year. My department was to do that, and so there is a limit to how much I can use it. I have never reached that limit, and like I said, I use it in all of my classes, and so it's a pretty high number. So some of the front end features. You can change the classroom setup at will, and I'll do this here in a minute. I won't disrupt the middle of the slide, but the proximity audio, the broadcast ability, the chat features, these are all things that you've probably already seen. Um, if you look over to your right, if you haven't kind of opened the people icon, that'll give you an attendee list. There's the chat features up there, the ability to raise your hand, the broadcast feature, the sharing feature, all the kinds of things you'd expect in this kind of a platform. There's a closed captioning feature, obviously the ability to change your audio video settings, blurring, mirroring your video, help and support have always been very good. Every now and then we've got a student that has trouble with the connecting, and it almost always comes down to a problem that's in their own computer that needs to get resolved. That would have been a problem on any platform they're using. So the backend feature is you can record sessions. We're recording this one. There are session attendance logs, so you can see when people are entering and leaving. You can save the chat. And this question came up before. There is an auditorium feature that they launched, I want to say maybe 6 months ago, for larger classes. It seems to me to be similar to the Zoom presentation mode. If you watch one of those Zoom presentations where you really only have the ability to kind of raise your hand or to put questions in the chat, that's what it seems like to me, but I have not used it very much. My class sizes have been sufficient to where I haven't had to go there. The regular presentation room can handle kind of in the 35 to 45 range in my experience. They might give you a smaller number, but that has worked okay for me without having to move to the auditorium feature. So that is available. So let me show you a little bit about what the back end looks like. I'm going to go ahead and share a different screen. All right, so what you're seeing here is, this is kind of my back end screen that I would use as I'm launching. And so, the one that's up on the upper left-hand corner, that's the one that we're in now. I have different spaces created for different courses or for office hours, other things that I might be doing. And so if you go to video recordings, it'll show you all the recordings, including the one that we're doing here. If you go to sessions, it'll link all the different sessions that are going on. And you can click, you can see the attendees. And again, you can ultimately download this as a CSV or an Excel file if you want to kind of see, okay, who was in, when did they show up, when did they leave? Just kind of some of those simple things from an instructor standpoint. These were not features that they had when I started using InSpace, but they're ones that they've added over time to make it at least parallel with some of the things that their competitors are offering. And for me, those have been, all the ones that I've really needed in order to be able to kind of check the things that I wanted to check in terms of my students being there. All right, so we'll come back to here. All right, so if you have any questions on some of those pieces so far. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised at the moment. So let me talk a little bit about how I use the technology. As I noted before, it's my everyday hybrid option for my undergraduate students. They very much appreciate that ability. It's not something that's promised to them, but it's something we talk about on the first day of class. Even though the pandemic may be over, we still don't want students coming in and getting everybody else sick. People travel, people have things happen. And so it's a nice way for them to be able to keep up if they can't physically be there. I have used it occasionally for fully online sessions. I think it works really well for that. The challenge I had is that my classes are set up as in person, and the students didn't appreciate switching to an online mode unless we absolutely had to, mostly because they'd already planned their schedules that they would be in the classroom building in person from X to Y time. And if they were going to do online, they either had to try to get home real quick to sign in online, or they would have to somehow find a quiet spot where they could sit and participate. I use it for my office hours. I use it for team discussions. I think that, like I said, the team room is better set up. We'll show that in a minute. Actually, why don't we do one? Get everybody moving around a little bit. All right, so I've opened it up so that there's 4 different team rooms, and I can label these team rooms. And so as you can see now, this is where you see the freedom of movement and motion. You can move around the space as much as you want. In terms of the audio, if you turned off your mic, as long as you're not using the broadcast feature that I am, only the people that are physically close to you will be able to hear you talking. And the further away you get, the less that they will be able to hear you until they're silenced altogether. If you're inside a team room, everybody inside that team room can hear you. Everybody outside that team room cannot hear you. And so one of the things I really like about this as a setup is that it's kind of very transparent. You can see as people start talking.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I'm seeing broadcast.
All right, Igor, are you meaning to broadcast? Okay. And so one of the things I think I see a few of you experimenting, but as people start talking, you can also see their circles kind of with the blue glow like you see on mine right now. From an instructor standpoint, that at least allows you to know that there's a conversation going on. Of course, you don't know what the conversation is. They still might be talking about weekend plans, but it provides you the opportunity to know that they're just not sitting there doing nothing. The other thing is that if I choose to enter a team room, people can see me coming. And I just think that this is a much better approach than with Zoom, where you just kind of just show up completely unannounced, and all of a sudden, your face just shows up in their team room, which is a little bit jarring. And it just feels like it's kind of a rough way to handle that. It's also very frustrating as an instructor to have to try to jump between team room to team room to team room. In InSpace, it's very easy. I just move myself into a team room. I check and see how everything's going, see what the conversation's going, and then move on to the next one. So I don't know if others are kind of getting a feeling as you hear that, like, yeah, I like this setup better. But for me, it was something that was significantly better than the Zoom setup. All right. The other way that I can use this is for open space, for things like voting, class interaction, reunions. I won't talk much about the reunions other than to say I have I run our PhD program here in the department, and I've used this as a way to do virtual reunions with our alums, and they've loved the ability to do that. And you often see them clustering in different spaces because of the proximity-based audio, to be able to, people that were here at the same time will cluster together and talk, and people were here at a different time. And it just because it was a really nice setup, and it was way better than when we tried to do something like that on Zoom. So I see a couple things in the chat. Can I share screen privately with my group in the team room? Yes, you should be able to do that. Is anybody trying to do that right now?
Hey, I'm sorry. Can you repeat what we're supposed to do? I was distracted for a second.
Right now, it's just to show you the feature of what the team rooms are, how they operate, and the benefits from kind of an instructor and from a student standpoint. So right now, if you want to move into a team room, you can, but it's really just to show the functionality of the platform. Okay, so something else you can do is you can use it as kind of a voting mechanism. So I probably wouldn't ask this question in my innovation class, although it would probably make for an interesting conversation. But I might ask this question of my undergraduate innovation students: which innovator do you most admire? And if I wanted to do that, one way that I could set this up is just to change my background and then have people move. And I'm going to change the setup space again to no rooms. Actually, we'll do that. And I'll stop sharing. And so then one of the things you can do is I can ask students to vote. Okay, you've got Edison on the left, you've got Tesla on the right. Move over to which innovator you most admire. And now I've got a very clear physical sense of who's voting for whom. and I can have a conversation. I can ask, okay, why do you think Edison? Why do you think Tesla? And if things are a little bit quiet, which sometimes they are, I can ask specific students to say, hey, John, I see you're on Edison. What is it about Edison that you most admire? And so again, it provides. Some people will actually do this. I haven't done it this way, where you can have them logged in while they're in class, physically in the building, and do this so that you can see that same kind of movement. And then again, have the ability to say, okay, why are you voting this way? And it provides just a little bit of something for the students to do. Okay, so I'm having trouble reading this one that's in the chat. How do I schedule a meeting or a class? Can I do that through Canvas like I can do with Zoom? Okay, that's the great question. Right now, we don't have an integration. InSpace does provide a Canvas integration, but we don't have that here at UTK. It's something that is possible, but it's not something we've done at the moment. And so what I do is, if I go, let me go ahead and share. Oops, hold on, I went too far. So when you've got an account, you go to, oh, it's still not showing the right one. Let me try this again. All right, this is the one I was looking for. The way that I do it is that once you're here, you can create any number of spaces, and they'll have unique links. And then I just use those links as the way that that I invite the students. So I post those links on Canvas, and students can pop right in, whether it's for office hours or for the classroom. Okay, so Jen, yeah, you asked about how it works in the hybrid setting. Some students are here and others are in the classroom. The way that I do it, and again, I don't know that there isn't a better way to do it. But what I do is I'll set it up in this classroom setting, which we have right now, and then allow the students to come in. I share the presentation that I'm doing in the classroom, or if I'm doing something on the whiteboard, I can set the camera in the classroom to be focused on that whiteboard so they can see that. And then the microphones will kind of pick me up as I'm going through that. Sometimes we'll lose some of the conversation for the students that are talking, that are physically in the classroom. Sometimes that doesn't get picked up by the microphones. And so that doesn't always end up getting translated to the students who are online. But it allows them to kind of be following through everything that we're doing. If there's activities, they can see the activities we're doing, and they can be working on those at home as we're working on those in class.
Sorry, Dave, does it, how, I see that it's different than Zoom, but is it exponentially better than trying to, like, as being somebody that's trying to be in two places at once, right? Face to face, and then with the online students, do you feel like you're not having to think about it as much, or is it, I'm imagining being up in front of the classroom and then having this go in the background. Talk to me a little bit about how that goes.
So for me, I haven't felt I felt that it was easier than when I was using Zoom to do the same thing. In many ways, it's just probably a preference that I feel like when it's set up this way, I can quickly see at a glance everybody that's in the InSpace area. I'm not kind of having to scroll through, and so I can see that. I can put the chat up alongside it. I can watch those two things occasionally. If for whatever reason we have a day where there's a lot of people on InSpace, I can always set somebody in the classroom, just like with Zoom, as somebody who can monitor the chat. If somebody wants to jump into the conversation in the classroom, at least with the classrooms I'm using, if they unmute their mic and start talking, the entire classroom in the building can hear them as well. And so I think Zoom is the same way. And so that's the way that I've used it. I've just found it a lot more user-friendly for them and more user-friendly for me.
Thank you.
Marianne, yeah, to your comment, yeah, we've talked about that, but it's not something that we've set up yet at this point. Are there other questions? I don't see anything else in the chat at the moment. Oh, thank you, Igor. You're right, Jeremy. I missed your question there. So another thing I wanted to kind of point out here for something that was going to be online, this is an exercise I do in my face-to-face classes where, we're trying to study innovation. And so I asked them on a note card to say, how could your experience at this university be improved? And I want one realistic innovation, about one sentence, something that's very easily explained. And then what I asked them to do is start to physically move around the classroom and, talk to anybody they want, end any conversation whenever they want. And if their innovation is better than yours, for whatever reason, you're now on that person's team, you kind of stay near them and walk around the room with them. This is certainly something that I have no idea how this would ever be possible on at least the functionality that I've seen with Zoom. But in InSpace, it would be very easy just to set it up to throw everybody here, back out of the classroom setting. But now people could move around and they could do this exact kind of exercise where they can physically move around because of the proximity-based audio. They can talk to each other without it just being kind of a cacophony of sound of everybody trying to talk at the same time, which you tend to get at Zoom. And so it's not breakout rooms. It's not, everybody trying to talk at once. It's something that actually allows this experience for people to walk around and converse with each other individually for a particular exercise. And so to me, the freedom of being able to map, in-class movement and activities to the online space was a particularly powerful feature. Let me pause for a second. Jeremy, were you able to get the background to work for you?
No, actually, Dave. It gives me. I was just telling Igor in the chat. It gives the option to blur the background or mirror your video image, but it doesn't really give you an option to put something on a green screen behind you.
Yeah,
like
and
Zoom would do.
Yeah, and I have never done that here, so it does sound like perhaps that's not possible. If I had to guess, their explanation would probably be that because the circles and the size of the circles are far less intrusive, that the kind of the need to do anything other than blur, perhaps they felt was not necessary.
That makes sense.
So that's all I prepared. I really just wanted a chance for people to get a chance to use the space, to see some of the ways that I tend to use it, and to kind of get a sense whether you think it's interesting for you, if it's something that could be helpful in your teaching, or other things that you might use it for. Yeah, so the question in the chat, exactly. So that's exactly what I send to my students. So the instructions that I put in, that Igor put in the email, I will post that on Canvas. The first day of class, we walk through it together to make sure everybody can get into the space. And that way, if they have to miss any class going forward and use InSpace instead of being physically in the classroom with us, that they've had a practice doing that. And so, usually between the link and then the students tend to be more intuitive on the browser-based stuff anyway, so they tend to kind of get it right away.
I think Jeremy was trying to talk, and I think we can't hear him.
Yeah, keep in mind on the audio, if you unmute, only people that physically are close to you will hear you. So if you want to ask a question that all of us can hear, click on the megaphone, and that will broadcast you to all of us.
Is there a certain distance that I have to be? Like, what's close considered?
So that's it's been a while since I've actually tested it. The best way to do it is to go stand next to somebody, have them start talking, and then you're going to see probably when you get probably 3 to 4 circles away, you're going to find that you can no longer hear them. So yeah, find a friend and test it out.
Igor,
Okay, I'm next to you. Hey, Igor.
Yes.
You.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
Okay.
Is this just a you, me, Sue conversation?
Can you hear me?
Or
It appears.
is anyone else eavesdropping into our?
I don't think
Yes,
so.
I
I don't see
can.
anybody else. Oh,
No,
Sue
I
just
cannot
stepped
mute
away.
myself. Go back here. Okay.
I like the idea of having side conversations, right?
Yeah. Now, Adam, can you hear us?
Yeah, and that's interesting. If I bounce over to you, it fades you in. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I wonder if you get like overlapping conversations, like when you like turn the dial of an old radio and like you're kind of between.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
I'm
wild.
Close enough to eavesdrop on that one a little bit.
Okay.
It's kind of like if you're in a crowded room where, as you walk closer, it gets louder, and as you walk further away, it kind of fades out. And if you're in the middle of 2 groups, you will sometimes, if the 2 groups are close to each other, you can get some overlap there.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Tanya, we can hear you.
Oh, Josh.
Yeah, Dave, you're having a little trouble with like a lot of echoing and like robotics. Have you had that, Dave?
I have not had that much issue with that. So I turned off broadcast. It just was there echoing on my end? No.
It was like Rosie and Adam and I, like it was like really like a lag. It might just be on my side, but Rosie kind of said the same thing. Adam said the same thing.
No,
it's like
it's not something that I've noticed.
Okay. Could just be on our side. It's really cool though.
Yeah.
A couple of things you might notice as you're moving around is if you hover your cursor over somebody else, you can ask them to mute, although this may just be an instructor
Are you all
feature.
getting a lot of
you can pin a participant. You can invite them to come over to you. If you want to say like, hey, come on over, let's have a conversation.
A bad apocalyptic movie.
And then you can do the thumbs up as well. So yeah, Marianne, I've had a couple people mention that. That's not an experience that I've had on the platform before, and it's not a complaint that I've gotten from my students. So that does seem to be something that's happening today. And I don't know if it's a platform issue, if it's an internet connectivity issue. I'm not entirely sure what the answer to that one might be. That's interesting that it was when you were grouped together. I've done a lot of teamwork stuff with it, and again, I haven't had the complaint, but that's not to say that it couldn't be an issue that's developed on the platform over time.
Broadcast. So could we repeat what is, I overheard something about it's an issue?
Yeah, there was some concern in the chat that when groups of you were getting together to talk here on the platform with the proximity based audio, that the audio quality was starting to degrade. And so that's not something that I've noticed nor had complaints about in the past. But that's what I was suggesting, that several people have mentioned it today. So it could be unique to today, or it could be something more than that. I can't say.
Thank you. I was feeling self-conscious. Oh, Kosi, hello, Kosi. I didn't know you were here. Hey, Kosi. Can you hear me, Kosi? I can't hear you. I can't hear Kosi.
I can, but I'm not Kosi. I can.
Oh, I thought you were Kosi. Hi, where is Kosi?
To the question in the chat, yes, I believe there is a free trial. I did a kind of a free trial with them for a little bit, and then when I realized that I wanted to try to use it more broadly for the for the entire semester, that's when I went ahead and signed up and had I think it was $375 for the year. And I believe we've got an InSpace rep now for UT. Let me see give me a moment. Let me see if I can track that down. If somebody has it handy, let me know. But I believe I have that information in my email somewhere.
And if I could speak to that for just a moment, we've had a little difficulty trying to get one-off licenses with them. It seems like it's something for you, Dave, you're kind of grandfathered into that. That was at a time they were doing one-off licenses. So hold on to that individual license. I don't know if it's a unwillingness at this point or if they really can't do it, but the only kind of license that they've talked to us about doing is like a 10,000 person kind of license. And so we've had some recent conversations about trying to figure out, could we get individual trials? Can we do this, that, and the other? And it doesn't look like that's possible anymore. But people could always reach out and ask, and maybe that would help kind of move their thinking.
That's incredibly frustrating. I did not know that.
Yeah. Because we wanted to be able to offer people that. I mean, free trials, or what would it cost to do individual? I'll speak. I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking for people at OLAP, not for OIT or anything like that. But we don't see this. We don't see this as certainly a replacement of Zoom, nor as something that feels like a campus-wide initiative. Just it doesn't feel like it would have the kind of grab that we would need for something like that. So we're disappointed with that kind of stance, and they may shift on that. I'm not sure, but at this point, we don't really know what to tell people about trying to utilize this or even testing it out moving forward. But they're free to reach out to the rep, and I could find the name if you want me to, and I can put it into the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now as well. I agree with you. I don't think it's a everybody across the university is going to use it kind of tool. But I do think if they were to be more flexible in allowing a smaller license, that there would be interest. But yeah, if they're not going to allow people to kind of test it out over a semester or so, then it's going to be pretty hard for them to get enough people here to sign on.
But I think it's super interesting, and I think it could, really be a neat solution. So let's see here. I've got its information. It's Justin Fahey. I'm just going to stick it into the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. So it seems the room has gone quiet, right? So the chat's quiet. I don't see any circles going. So I think that's universal symbol that we've worn out our welcome now at this point. So
yeah. Well, thank you all for sticking with us and for coming today. Thank you, David, for the session today. And we will be having another brown bag in 2 weeks. Please use the workshop tool to sign up. And I hope you all have a great spring break.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you.